Now I'd like to introduce Hanan Brand, who I've known for a number of years back when he was in the private sector, or some of us call the dark side in venture capital. Today he represents the Israel Innovation Authority, which is a semi-governmental organization that helps not only startups, but really anyone that is interested in innovation in Israel, from corporates to other governments to startups as well, to access the innovation here. So Hanan, please come up on stage. Here's clicker.
Okay, so nice to meet you everyone, and thank you very much for being here today. My name is Hanan Brand. I'm the Vice President and Head of the Startup Division in the Israel Innovation Authority. As you mentioned, after 15 years in the venture capital industry, I moved recently to the public side. It's a very, I would say this is the dark side actually, not the VC. I worked in 3 funds in the past. I was part of Ofer Brothers. It's one of Israel's largest conglomerates. We had a venture capital fund and private equity focused on medical devices. After that, I was part of the investment committee at JVP, if you're aware, one of Israel's largest funds. And after that, I established a fund called Cornerstone Venture Partners. We were a US-Israeli fund, investing around $30 million in 12 companies. And after all of that, I decided to do a small change and to look at things from the government perspective and how Israel can actually benefit and take things forward, not from the private side. And I will talk a few words about who we are and our activities. So, wow, this is really big. Okay, so today the Israeli high-tech industry is, of course, very big. 10.4% of the employees in Israel work in high-tech, which is the largest percentage in the world today. 361, actually close to 400,000 workers. But this amount of 10% of the population actually creates 54% of exports, 15% of Israel's GDP, and above 25% of the income tax. So I think this is very clear why the industry is very important for Israel as a nation. As in addition, our research and development, the national expenditure on civilian R&D in Israel is #1 in the world, compared to the OECD average of 2.47%. We have around 5% of our GDP goes to R&D. Investments, as you can see, this really big anomaly we had in 2021, investments into Israeli companies. In 2021, more than $25 billion was invested here into Israeli companies. Last year, we saw a decline to around 15 billion, and we're expecting to see a decline as well, as we saw all around the world this year as well, to somewhere around $7-8 billion per year, but it's still quite a nice amount. In terms of history, so of course, Israel was established in 1948, but already in 1950, IBM opened their first R&D facility in Israel. After that, Motorola opened in 1964. But actually, until 1990, there was almost no startup industry. In 1971, the chief scientist was established in the Ministry of Economy, aimed to encourage private sector R&D project. And actually, the Israel Innovation Authority, until 5-6 years ago, was still called the chief scientist of Israel. In 1990, the government decided to create an incubator program. We had almost 1 million people who came here from the Soviet Union, people who were really, really talented, but there was no jobs for them. So the government decided to create incubators in the periphery of Israel in order to help them create new businesses and new startups that are focused on R&D. The success was phenomenal, and we still have this incubator program today, 33 years after. In 1992, the government understood that there is not enough money here for the private sector to invest into startups, 1993 actually, and the Yozma program was established, basically saying we will match every fund that will bring money from abroad to invest into Israeli startups, will get one-to-one matching. And that created the first 10 VCs in Israel, including JVP, a fund I worked there in the past, and actually established this industry that we're talking about today. These were the pre-bubble years before 2000. And the results of these funds were phenomenal, and that basically was the founding cornerstone of the Israeli startup industry. 1996 and 98, there was a few very big exits as ICQ, who was sold to AOL, and Checkpoint, who IPO'd. And then, of course, the last couple of years, Mobileye, who IPO'd and was sold to Intel in $15.3 billion, 2014. And we were established in 2016, actually, was spun out the Israel government, and today we're a really independent organization. We're not political, we're not part of the government, we're actually not government officials, and we're able to decide ourselves where the money should go. We're actually maybe the closest entity to the business side within the government, and all of the changes of governments in Israel don't really affect our activity. So that's us in a nutshell. We get around 2,500 applications for funding every year, and we approve somewhere around 50% of them. Just to compare, people here, I'm sure you know Horizon, the European program, the percentage of approval there is around 10% of the submissions, so it's very high. We invest around 1.5 billion shekels every year, somewhere $400–500 million. In addition, we also facilitate grants from the Horizon program of 1 billion shekels more. We supported last year 872 companies, and out of them 237 new companies that were actually established in our incubators and different programs. The way we operate, we have 140 employees who work in the Israel Innovation Authority, but we also use 180 tech evaluators who are actually work for us and are able to help us with due diligence in every kind of submission we get. So as part of my investment committee, for example, I get a very, very detailed research that tells me, is it a good company, the team good, is the technology good, and we can actually evaluate, should we approve this submission or not. We have three main principles. So first of all, we don't take any equity. We tried it in the past, the first incubators, it's not a good idea. It makes you more like a Soviet Union. You take a percentage in the company, you take control in the company. We don't want to be there. We don't take any equity. Our money is a conditional loan. So basically, if the company fails, we are not asking for the money back. If the company succeeds, you start to pay royalties out of your revenues up to 1x what you received. Okay, so actually it's a really good loan. It could take you 10, 15 years until you return it. However, if you decide to take the company outside of Israel, you want to take the IP out of Israel, you pay up to 3x what you received. So that is the penalty, I would say, if you want to take out the IP that was created. In most cases, when there's exits in Israel, the company stays in Israel and the IP stays in Israel, and you don't need to pay anything. So that's our loan. The third principle is matching. So we never give 100% of the grant. It's always matching with the private sector. It can start with 30%. It goes up to 85%, means that we put 85% of the risk, but we always want to see the private sector put money with us. Sorry, what did I do? Press the wrong button. Okay. We have three main technology divisions. Okay, it starts from the technology infrastructure division that is focused on applied research, national infrastructure, corporate academia collaboration. The second one is the startup division that I'm heading. In that division, we're focusing on investments from idea to the seed stage. We have incubators and labs all across Israel. I'll talk about it in a second. We have programs to support human capital needs, and we're developing the ecosystem. We'll talk about that in a second. The last one is the growth division. So that's focused on companies who are a bit more developed and more mature. And the work with multinational companies are actually also developed in the growth divisions. We have also an international collaboration division. It's very important for people here who are interested to maybe participate and join us to go through the international collaboration. We have binational programs with many countries and many multinationals. Our goals. So first of all, we're not the private sector, and we look at things a bit different. Of course, we're not here to make money, and we're not here to succeed. We're looking for Israel's future. So the three main goals are, first of all, to establish new growth engines for the state of Israel. Around 80% of investment of the private market today in Israel goes to the software industry, cyber, fintech, SaaS, very important industries, but we're looking to expand it to additional sectors. So we're always looking for what is the growth engine for Israel for the next 5 to 10 years. The second one is to address market failures. We of course understand that the private market isn't interested to solve Israel's problems. They're trying to make money, which is the right thing to do. And that's why we're looking to put our money where we feel that there is a market failure and a need for our interference. And the last one is to remove obstacles. As you know, the government is not always very supportive. There's regulation, there's issues, there's problems. And the fact that we are actually part of the government, we are able to help many companies with their barriers in order to get to growth. I was talking about growth engines. We have 4 or 5 main sectors today that we believe are the future growth opportunities for Israel. The first one is, of course, artificial intelligence. It's not a new one, but it's continuing to be a very important one, and we're looking to support infrastructure and AI for the future of Israel. The second one is quantum computers. We'll talk about this in a second. Third one is bioconvergence, which is the combination between biology and engineering. So this is the future of healthcare, but not only healthcare, it's also the future of our planet, combination between biology and engineering. And the last one is ClimateTech, technologies that are actually fighting the climate crisis. Talk about it in a second. Just for example, we established the National Quantum Computing Center. As we all know, to create a quantum center costs hundreds of millions of dollars. There's no chance that the private sector will be able to do it. And we don't want every researcher in Israel to be dependent on IBM, Samsung, or Google, okay, which have these centers. So we actually established a center that will be ready in the next year, that will be free of charge for every researcher and every company in Israel who want to do research based on the national quantum computer. What happened here? Okay. ClimateTech is a sector that we really believe in. Of course, this is a very big challenge for humanity, but it's also could be an opportunity for creating big companies and opportunity for Israel. You can see here the growth forecast of a few sectors that are growing immensely: circular economy, renewable energy. Some of the text for some reason is not here, but you can see every sector growing dramatically, looking for solutions for the climate crisis. And this sentence by Bill Gates, I really recommend reading his book, How to Avoid Climate Disaster. He's saying that countries that build great zero-carbon companies will be the ones that lead the global economies in the coming decades. So part of our position as Israel Innovation Authorities, we're not only looking for problems, we're looking for solutions and opportunities, and we see an opportunity to create a big industry around that. That's why we created a national plan. It's split for some reason, that on one sector we're trying to focus on Israel climate ecosystem, so establishing more and more companies, but on the other side we're trying to get to Israel goals to get to net zero by 2050. So of course we're trying to grow startups, to create incubators, to create knowledge and international collaboration, but not less important, we want these technologies to be implemented in Israel so we can actually reduce our carbon emissions. For that, we approved a $1 billion program to be invested in these sectors in the next 3 to 4 years. I don't know if we need to really go into it, but there is already results. There is around 700 companies in climate tech today in Israel. One of 7 companies established last year was one of climate sectors. $2.5 billion of investment and a really nice growth. And in the left side, this is a nice graph that actually shows sectors that are a bit more mature. So you see more money invested in more companies established, clean energy, sustainable mobility, and climate agriculture, but also sectors that are growing fast. You can see alternative proteins, for example, alternatives for meat. I think Yaakov Nachmias are going to talk about it soon, right? And that is a sector that grew dramatically in Israel. Last year, Israel was second in the world in investment in alternative meats. That is a very important meat. Most of these companies got funding from us in the beginning. And also sectors that we see early emergence. Okay, low carbon buildings and food loss and circularity, that they're beginning of ecosystems that are established. How long do we have? A few minutes. Okay. We're looking for areas where there's a market failure. How do we know it's a market failure? It's mainly where the private market doesn't want to invest, or venture capitalists think it's too risky, places that I didn't want to invest in the past. Okay, so it's a regulation, very few expert investors, long time to market, high risk. These are companies that the private market doesn't like to support because it's too risky. And that's where we feel our investment is very needed because there's a market failure. And most of the companies today we support are either ClimateTech, HealthTech, or Deep Tech. We almost don't invest in companies of applications, of software. We don't feel that there is a market failure and our money is less needed there. Right? Our startup support is, and that's mainly my division, across a few programs. So we have open matching tracks that we give matching to investors anywhere between 30% to 85%. Tnufa is really for idea stage, the seed fund is for the seed stage, and R&D fund is for more later stages. And we also have entities that are supporting innovation centers, labs, and incubators that we establish all across Israel. This is a map of today the incubators and labs that we have, around 19 incubators. You can see some of the international companies that are shareholders, some of the largest companies in the world, Pfizer and Merck and AstraZeneca and Takeda. In energy, we have 2 incubators and labs, one called ESIL, the second one is called Net Zero, with groups like Total Energies and EDF and Enel, who are partners in these incubators. They are trying to establish groundbreaking companies in these sectors. But we also have quite a lot of incubators that are focused on technologies in health tech. We just established a new incubator in the space industry. So I think it's the first incubator in the world that is focused on creating technologies for space, not on the governmental side, but on the private side. It's a bit early to market, of course, to create space technologies, but that's what we're looking for. We have 2 incubators that are doing food tech. Okay? So these are our labs. In addition, we're also very into supporting diversity in Israel. So we established last year 5 centers for the Arab sector. This is a sector where there's less high-tech and less startups. We created 5 different groups all around the north of Israel to support entrepreneurship in the Arab society. And we also opened 2 centers in Haifa and Beersheba in order to support the local ecosystem and diversify the Israeli ecosystem. So just to, for some reason it's erased. Let's talk Tachlis. Anyone knows what's Tachlis? Not Israelis? No? Every time when there's Germans in the crowd, they know what is Tachlis. But let's talk, how can we actually collaborate? You can be part of our incubators and our innovation labs. There's going to be a new tender after around July, a new tender for incubators and labs that your companies can participate. You can invest directly into Israeli companies with our matching. We really support that. We have a program called R&D collaboration. So actually your multinational, if it signs an agreement with the Israel Innovation Authority, you can go for joint projects, joint pilots that we will actually take the funding. Okay, but in order for that, you need to bring a startup, you need to bring yourself, and you need to bring a project. And we will fund that project together. There's industrial R&D cooperation, so we have programs of support with academia. So if your company is looking for something in the future, a challenge that it's very hard to create, to solve inside, we can create a joint challenge with a university and a joint R&D project. And there's additional ways to collaborate with us. Happy to help in any way. I don't know if we don't have time to questions, but we would really love to see you more in Israel and help in any way. So don't hesitate to contact me.
Thank you, Hanan. And with every speaker that speaks today, anyone that wants connections to them, please just message me or find me, and I'll happily give you their contact information. And now I'd like to introduce our next speaker, representing the running the research and innovation department in the EU's delegation to Israel. I'd like to introduce Andrea Carignani. who will talk a little bit more about what the EU is doing to support innovation here in Israel. Thank you.
Hi everybody, happy to be here. Thanks for the invitation, and already talked to similar audience. I would like just to convey some messages. As it was said, I'm the head of the Research and Innovation section at the European Union Delegation. Delegation meaning, it means embassy. I don't know how many of you are aware that there is a European Union embassy in Tel Aviv. There are several sections. One is dealing with research and innovation. What is the objective of this section and what is the mandate? The mandate is to ensure the oversight of the cooperation between Israelis and Europeans under the European Research and Innovation Framework Program. How many of you are familiar with Horizon Europe? I think you are aware of it. Only one? That's great. Horizon Europe is a multi-billion framework program. It's about 95 billions over 7 years. It's a program covering all the different phases of the research and innovation. It's covering all the verticals, all the fields, and is addressed to private and public organizations. Now, you know that Israel is a hub, innovation hub, and a superpower. The figures that were presented by the Israeli Innovation Authorities are very telling. It ranks first among the OECD countries in terms of investment in research and development. This is the reason why European Union is eager to cooperate with Israel. This is a long-standing history. I mean, it started 27 years ago. Israel was one of the associated countries to the first framework program, and the figures are really telling. I mean, over the last 7 years, just to tell you something, the data, Israelis participated in 2,000 projects together with Europeans. In particular, Israelis are extremely strong in many fields and in what is the European Research Council. European Research Council is covering frontier research, basic research, bottom-up, meaning in all possible fields, and we have observed that Israelis have ranked among the first countries. They're even better than the best European performance in terms of researchers, organization funded. The program works through grants and now recently equity. We have been inspired by the Israeli Innovation Authority, and we set up the European Innovation Council that is looking at the higher TRL, so technical readiness level. We want to bring what has been discovered in the labs to the market. This is what has been considered a weakness of the European Union in the research and innovation. We want to cover this part through a mix of grant and equity. We have observed that the Israelis are extremely good, but I'm not here to tell you what is working. I would like also to share with you what is not working and what could be the actors complementing what we are doing under this cooperation in the research and innovation program. Basically, Israelis, they have shown that they're extremely good when they are running on their own, what we call mono-beneficiaries, when they get a grant. So there was a political debate in Europe. There are some countries that they were willing to keep having this cooperation, and there are other countries. There was a very vibrant debate at the European Parliament, considering that why should we fund European Israelis? Then Israelis are getting the grant and they are developing the research with US and with China. So the idea was to set up here a section in order to steer this cooperation. Because the cooperation is excellent, but it's fragmented. It's not is not in line with our priorities, I mean European Union. Now I'm happy to see that what was explained by the Israeli Innovation Authority, that is also sort of stressed in the priorities of the Ministry of Science and Technology, the priorities. Priorities are ClimateTech, and we are happy to see that this being the priority, the flagship of European Union in terms of Green Deal, so all the green technologies. Israelis, the government, has decided to invest in green technologies. There are over $700 new startups and companies, and we are happy. This is one of the sectors. The other one are medical devices, health, bioconvergence, so between biology and engineering. This is another sector in which the European Union has decided to invest a lot of money. The third sector is digital. By digital, we mean artificial intelligence, quantum, and all the disciplines that are related to this block. So we can summarize in 3 blocks: ClimateTech, digital, and health. So our idea is to align together with the Israeli government in order to put funds and to invest more in these 3 fields. So the idea that Israelis are good, but they're running on their own, they're getting European Union funds and they're developing with other countries, we want to revert this. And according to some studies, this has happened. In the last 10 years, we have been witnessing a shift. Israelis, they were working much more with the US in terms of patenting, in terms of building partnership with companies and corporates. Now we see that in the last 10 years, there are more European multinationals that decide to open here in Israel. There are around 380. This is extremely important for us. It means that the work done under the framework program has brought to some results. The results are clear in the multinational presence here, but not only, because we see also a number of Israeli branches opening in Europe. So all the work that we're doing on research innovation, for us, is important if it has an impact on the economy, on the European economy, in terms of Israelis, companies, branch, corporate opening up in Europe, establishing partnership in Europe, having Europeans investing in Israelis companies, and this has resulted in a positive trend, a trend that is witnessed by the figures. I mean, it's true that European Union, we are looking more at the regulation, the policies, and to align the technologies according to our priorities, but we need other actors. And this is, for instance, the Institute for European Technologies. We have the representative here. It's extremely important to work with them because they are complementing our action. We have public money. We have to align the priorities and the policies, but when it comes to bringing together the Israeli startups and companies and the European corporation, this is for other players. So Mind the Bridge is one of the organizations. I'm extremely happy that they are opening here. The European Institute for Innovation Technology is another one. There are Europeans, companies and organizations that are also instrumental to bring together the 2 innovation systems. So I'm extremely happy that all these organizations are sort of conducive of improving our cooperation. Basically, these are the main messages. I wanted to stress also the weaknesses and how we can overcome the weaknesses and the shortcomings. And so with these words, I will conclude my intervention. I don't know if there are questions, but I want just to convey some messages and to share with you my thoughts and reflections. Thank you.